Hey there, Parker Reed here, and welcome to PR Media, your home for everything movies and music through my eyes. And today we have a review of the brand new major motion picture, Halloween Kills. The nightmare isn't over as unstoppable killer Michael Myers escapes from Laurie Strode's trap to continue his ritual bloodbath. Injured and taken to the hospital, Laurie fights through the pain as she inspires residents of Haddonfield, Illinois to rise up against Myers. Taking matters into their own hands, the Strode women and other survivors form a vigilante mob to hunt down Michael and end his reign of terror once and for all. Going into this review, I've been a big fan of the Halloween franchise for a lot of years. The first film in 1978 is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and while the sequels get a little bit too fantastical and self-indulgent, I do enjoy them for what they are. I really enjoyed reviewing the first 5 movies on 4K recently. And the 2018 movie, which was a sequel to the first movie, but it had the same name, and I thought that was fine. It was okay. It was a decent reboot. It was a logical conclusion. It got rid of all the other films. It totally retconned all of those. But I was nervous for what the sequels were going to be. I thought they would be a little bit cash grabby and have a huge case of sequelitis. And unfortunately, with Halloween Kills, I was right on the money. So for the duration of Halloween Kills, Laurie Strode is sidelined for most of it. I mean, she was stabbed in the 2018 version, and we see her having surgery in this movie. So the fact that she's moving at all without being in tremendous pain the entire time and being almost comatose, that was surprising. So she's not really the protagonist. The protagonist of this movie is the guy who played Tommy in the first movie in 1978. And he's alright. He's a bit bullheaded, but you understand where he's coming from. And this feels almost like a revenge movie for Michael Myers because he's pissed off about almost being burned alive in the first one. And to start things off on the positive side, I enjoyed how gratuitous and how violent a lot of these kills are, and some of them are creative. There's one involving a doctor, a car, and a gun that had my entire theater lighting up with like, oh my gosh, holy shit, that happened. So there are cool moments like that, and while the violence does feel a bit gratuitous at times, that's where the series went after the first one anyway. You're not going to get away with any of those mundane kills now that we know what Michael Myers is, and he's this huge Halloween trope, so I wasn't bothered by that whatsoever. And overall, this cinematography on this movie is really great. There are some flashback sequences in 1978, and I was surprised by how good those look and how authentic they are. And overall, the movie is shot very well, and it looks pretty fantastic. It looks better than most of the other sequels. So there is some artistry here, but overall, this film is quite disappointing, and I'm going to tell you why. Within about 5 minutes is where the negatives start coming, and this is where the spoilers are going to kick in. So if you don't want to know what happens in Halloween Kills, go watch the movie and then come back to this review. So a huge problem with the 2018 movie is we had no idea how Michael Myers was captured and how he was put in prison, because at the end of the original 1978 film, Michael disappears. We have no idea where he went. So this movie already had an uphill battle to fight because we needed to know what happened. You can't just leave that plot thread hanging up in the air and never address it. So we flash back to 1978 and we do see some of the events that happened after he left Laurie Strode and after he fell off the balcony, and a lot of that is shot really well, but it shows the inherent problem with this movie is the fact that it doesn't need to exist. It doesn't justify its own existence. I feel like we're only getting these movies because the 1978 version is such a classic and it continues to make money, and some of the plot elements that are presented in these flashbacks are very inconsequential, and we get almost a Princess Leia moment in Rogue One where we see Dr. Loomis again, and he's been long dead, so I felt it was a little bit disrespectful to have him in this, and he did even say his catchphrase, I shot him 6 times! That sounded way too Irish, but that's the best I can do. I'm not a professional actor. So that took me out of the movie right there, knowing that that wasn't really the actor. But it gets worse when they flash back to present day because we have some returning characters. We have Tommy, we have Lindsay, we have the nurse, and some other characters that are back from the original 1978 film, and we know who they are, especially the big fans know who they are. But the amount of times people say, 40 years ago I did this, or 40 years ago we did that, and then reintroduce themselves, and they even flash back to the 1978 version of what they looked like back then, and then back to the present, like, you know who these people are, right? You know what they were in Halloween, the original. This is why you should care about them. It doesn't give them any more depth. It doesn't give them any more to do, really. It just says, oh, we're going to bring these actors back because we really need to milk that fucking cow of what that 1978 movie is. And this movie doesn't go the route that a lot of people wanted it to, of just being a traditional Halloween sequel where Michael Myers is this vicious killer and he's just on the hunt all night. They do try to execute some deeper themes in this, and I appreciated that. There's a plot line that talks about mob mentality and what a killer like this can do to a small town and the effect it can have on people, and how a killer's influence can extend beyond just who he murders. And I enjoyed that sentiment, but it was echoed by just awful acting. There's a lot of people chanting, evil ends tonight, evil dies tonight, and they should have hired some better actors because that just rang hollow, and it felt out of place because a lot of the humor from the 2018 version is not in this movie, so they tried to be hyper serious while also doing this gratuitous gratuitous gore. It was this back and forth play. It just didn't work very well. And we all know that there was going to be a cliffhanger ending at the end of this because they announced this movie, Halloween Kills, and then the sequel to it and the capper of the new sequel trilogy, which is Halloween Ends next year. And they do that at the end of this movie, but they also introduce some of the annoying ass supernatural elements that they started to do in the 80s Halloween sequels that nobody really liked, but they bring it back here because that's the only rational way that Michael Myers could survive the conflict at the end of this movie. And overall, this movie just feels like it's treading water and said, okay, we have to fill this hour and a half so that we can have this big showdown with Laurie at the end of the third movie. And I think this movie is not going to be defined by how good this one is in particular. I think it's going to be defined by how well they stick the landing in Halloween Ends, because people are just going to binge these movies after they all come out theatrically. They're not going to remember them as standalone films. So if this third movie or the fourth movie overall, it's confusing. If that's good, then I might view this a little bit differently, but overall I was really disappointed with this. It doesn't do a lot of new things, and it relies way too goddamn heavily in the 1978 movie. I love that film. I watch it every year for Halloween, but I don't need to see 20,000 flashbacks of it to remind myself why I need to care about the characters I'm looking at. And everyone's throwing around their catchphrases that they had in the first movie. Like any iconic line that was in that movie is going to be thrown into here. It just doesn't belong. And this movie really doesn't belong in the ethos of Halloween. Just let it die. No pun intended. And I'm quite disappointed in it. So overall, I'm going to give Halloween Kills a solid 4 out of 10. Some great kills, some good cinematography, but a holistically boring plot line and way too much reliance on the original 1978 version. I would skip this, just watch it on streaming or get it on DVD in a couple months. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw here, you can check us out on Facebook or Instagram and like, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. My name is Parker Reed. You've been watching PR Media. Keep supporting physical media, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Do it! Do it! You want your mask? Come and get it! I'm coming for you, Michael.